So how much should I be allocating to different alternative investments? Well, that's what I'm going to address in this video right here. And just so you know, you may not realize what alternative investments are available to you. Be sure to hang in here. All right, so here's a news flash. If you follow my Money Ripples channel, and by the way, subscribe if you haven't, but if you've been following my channel, it's no surprise that I love alternative investments, right? Because why? I love cash flow, because cash flow creates freedom, and alternative investments can be a great way to do that. Now, the real question for you is, how much do I allocate in this? What should I be putting in here versus maybe with my financial advisor? How much should I have in savings versus this? Great question. That's what I'll address today. And by the way, I'll even talk about what percentages have worked for me that may not work for you. This is not investment advice, but what have worked for me that could be the thing that actually helps you increase your wealth faster. Hang in there. All right, first and foremost, if you're actually Googling what are alternative investments, you probably already know what they are, but let me just be clear. Alternative investments, I like to call it Main Street versus Wall Street. So Wall Street investments we always hear about, right? This is the stuff that your financial advisor always talks about because it's always about the stock market. It's always about the bonds and all that kind of stuff, right? That's Wall Street, the stuff that's traded. The thing we hear that ding, 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 you know, the bell's going off, right? And you're like, and people are like clapping, these rich people like, yay, I don't know what happened, but yay, I'm just glad to be here, right? Those are the people you see all the time. That's not what we're talking about here. Alternative investments are anything besides that. This is the thing where we look at more what I call Main Street investing. This is where you could be investing in companies, right? You could be investing in real estate. You could be investing in oil and gas. You could be investing in all kinds of stuff, gold, silver, you name it, right? There's so many different ways to invest outside of it. Even crypto, yes, I said it, even crypto is considered an alternative investment. Even if it's not my favorite, but from time to time, I'll even invest in that too. But still, that's considered alternative. Really, it's anything that your financial advisor won't give you. And I'll tell you, from my experience, those are the best places to be in. Now, let me tell you about why that might be the case. Now, I used to be the biggest fan of the stock market. I would rave about it. I mean, I was a financial advisor, so obviously I was a salesman in a suit convincing you should put all your money in stock markets and bond markets and stuff, right? Now, I did that for several years. Now, even during that time, even though a lot of you may not know this, I was actually even a stock investor and options investor, and I taught people how to trade stocks and options. So I wasn't just a financial advisor. Guys, I was even a trader, and I don't mean like a trader of your country, right? I mean like a stock trader. I was doing that stuff and teaching other people how to do it. In fact, I taught 200 people how to trade stocks and options like one-on-one. Here's the thing, guys. It's like what I realized pretty quickly is, first and foremost, one, financial advisors aren't financially free. If it would work in the mutual fund game, wouldn't it work for everybody? And it's definitely if it works for anybody, it should be the financial advisors, right? No, even they have a hard time retiring. If that's not evidence enough for you, why would you put your money in something like that? Now, there are some other people say, I want to take that control in my own hands. I want to trade stocks and options. Well, I did that too, and I was super pumped about it. I thought that was the answer. But then I started to look again at other people's lives, the people that actually were doing the trading. And guys, I'll tell you, like some of the most beat up cars and trucks I ever saw were driven by people that would get up on stage telling you should be trading stocks and options. Yet when they would do it themselves, they're like, well, I can't use any of that money because then I can't make money. And so they would always have their money tied up in the stock market, but their life would never change at home, right? So their family would just say, man, you're broke. Oh, no wonder you're coaching people how to trade stocks and options because you can't afford to do it on your own, investing your own money, right? Sorry, I don't mean to be blunt. Okay, I do mean to be blunt. Let's be honest. You know, I'm trying to be blunt here because I want you to get the point that these people weren't making money either. And if that weren't bad enough, guys, there's people that came to me there's a guy that actually owned an options trading company, like an education company, came to me, he says, Chris, I'm sick and tired of trading stocks and options because, let's be honest, I have to keep waking up every morning monitoring and babysitting my trades. I would rather be passive. Can you teach me how to do passive income? So this is why by like 2008, 2009, I wasn't a big fan of doing stock market trading anymore. And at the same time, I was doing real estate. But I told you the contrast between those two, even though I lost money in real estate, I still made a lot more money with real estate with less effort, less work than I ever did in the stock market. So if you had the order of priority, mutual funds are like the very bottom, like here's what I can do to just kind of barely survive, but I'm probably gonna need Social Security and the government to help me out and when I'm retired because it won't be enough. Then there's stock trading, which could be good, and you could make more money than the mutual funds. But I'll tell you, the vast majority of people don't do that because they don't have the discipline to do it. And then the third option is maybe we do something different, right? Maybe we do something that's more in the alternative investment space that's not just stocks or bonds or options and things like that and covered calls and condors and things like that. maybe there's something better that's backed by real assets that also pays me income and I don't have to work my freaking tail off for it, right? Now, let's get back to the task on hand here. What's the question? How much do we allocate towards alternative investments? Now, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not an investment advisor. I'm not telling you what to do on this channel, of course. But I'll tell you, there are different rules of thumb that I've used for figuring out how to allocate. Now, I'll tell you, in my own life, even though I'm a big fan, I have 0% personally in the stock market right now. I know most talking heads won't be this blunt and this upfront. You know, guys like Dave Ramsey who say, oh, put your money in mutual funds, but almost all of his money is tied up in business and real estate. All of his net worth is in that. Very teeny bit is he put in actual stock market stuff. Because why? It doesn't work. It doesn't build real wealth. I'm going to be honest with you. So 0% I have in stocks. Actually, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, 0% in stocks. I had to think about that because there are times that I've actually bought into stocks. I will tell you this, if I ever do buy into stocks, it's probably because I think it's hitting a market bottom. And we are definitely not in that place right now. The market has not come down nearly enough for me to think this is a good deal. But if there's another crash like we had in 2007 through 2009, great. Maybe I'll buy a little bit, but I'm only going to buy a little bit to gamble in. And the way for you to determine it is this. Like, same thing, this is my same advice for crypto, for myself, right? Is that if it's money that I could put in there, and if I were to lose everything, my wife still won't hate me, then that's a good enough amount of money. For you, it might be $0. Your spouse may not allow it. Maybe they'll say 10 or 20 bucks. It could be hundreds, it could be thousands. But for me personally, do not put anything in things like stocks, mutual fund. Well, mutual funds can be better a little bit, but definitely not stocks and options or even crypto. Don't put your money in those things where you know you could lose all of it, right? If you're going to put money in those, be sure it's money you're willing to lose. Now, what about things like real estate? Well, real estate's a different game. Real estate is very hard to go to zero if you're buying the real asset. And remember that's about the real asset. It is possible to lose all your money in real estate. Not usually when you buy a property, right? Especially if you have insurance on it and things like that. But you could lose all your money when it comes to things like if you put your money with another person, that then they're doing a real estate deal. Maybe you're lending your money to that person. Well, what if that deal goes south and they don't have the money to pay you back? Maybe they file for bankruptcy. You could lose your money, couldn't you? Now, granted, if you lend your money to an investor, what's good is you can put a claim on that asset. You could say, listen, put me on title, just like a bank does. When you go buy your own house, the bank will give you a mortgage. And then with that mortgage, they'll say, I'm on title. I hold the title until you pay me off completely. If you don't pay me, if you don't make monthly payments, then I can foreclose on you. I can take that property away from you. Then I would sell it. You can do the same thing, the same exact thing with other investors. So if you're lending your money to an investor, it's better if you can attach it to a certain property or properties, if it's a portfolio, right? So that you can actually have some claim on that investment. If you have things like that, you can do a much larger percentage in alternatives. For me personally, in alternatives, if you're talking about with real estate and with all these other types of things we're talking about right here, I've got probably roughly about 80% of my money and my wealth tied up in those. The other 20% I've got in cash or other type of guaranteed things. So for example, I keep a lot of my cash in like life insurance. We talk about infinite banking on this channel a lot. Well, I put a lot of my money in life insurance because I have guaranteed to not lose that money. It's guaranteed to keep growing. It's tax-free, so it's protected from the IRS in that way, and it's protected from lawsuits and creditors. So if even somebody sues me and wins, they cannot get to that money. So I keep a lot of my liquid cash inside my life insurance, a little bit with banks, a little bit with high yield savings accounts, just to kind of diversify a bit. But again, I've got the vast lion's share of my holdings inside things like life insurance. But for the rest of my money, I put in a variety of real estate. And just so you know, guys, you can actually diversify among real estate. Now, real estate's not the only thing, right? You can invest in business. You can actually own franchises. You can actually even go into a syndication where you pool your money with other investors to buy and have a share in a franchise. You can actually be into other businesses as well. Although businesses get a little bit hairy, can get risky. Private equity, same thing. There's a lot less guarantees behind it, but those are ways you can go. I actually have money also in a partnership where, again, we buy real estate. We buy raw land. And I'll tell you, I put in about $450,000, but it's cash flowing about $11,000 a month, right? So cool things like that you can actually do to also generate good cash flow and passive income. Because again, I love cash flow, right? It's what creates freedom. You could also do things like oil and gas. So I will even go into the oil and gas space, but instead of investing in like speculative drilling, I'll invest in a place where they've already done the speculation. They've already done all the surveys. They've actually already started drilling. They just need more wells. So I'll finance the wells to go into that too. Now, I'll tell you this, I will never put more than a third of my money with any one operator. Even if they have multiple investments that could be in multiple deals, like in that oil and gas space, I'm in multiple deals with the same partner, but I will not let more than a third of my money go in because I don't want to rely on just the same jockey, right? They always say that you bet on the jockey, not the horse. You bet on the horse and the jockey. Let's be honest, right? You need a good jockey, but they also have to have a good horse. You got to make sure that you're not over-diversifying into one place. So total diversification, the total allocation you put to alternative investments could be very high, especially if you're taking lower risk with it. But I would say the higher risk you're taking, the less I would put in percentage-wise. Again, that's up to you. I'm not here to give you advice. The percentages can vary, but I know personally with one type of person or company, I don't put more than a third of my money in. And then two, when it comes to alternative investments, the safer I am, the more I'm willing to put in, which would be, for me at least, 80 to 90%. Beyond that, I still want to have good liquid cash just in case, because you got to have money for emergencies and you have to have money for opportunities. So that's what I do. That's personally my thing. Again, I like to split between some business things, some real estate, even commodities. I'll buy gold and silver. I have oil and gas investments. I'll diversify in those different areas. It just depends on what's the right formula for you. Now, if you want to be able to figure out how much passive income you could actually create in the alternative investment world, we actually have a passive income calculator at moneyripples.com you could try out to see what's possible in your situation. Try that calculator out today.